Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri. Oh, I can't even say my name. It's been that kind of a year. It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another live episode slash post-game live stream of the Knicks Film School Podcast. We have a lot to get to as this season is mercifully drawing to a close. This is the first time that I have spoken to Jeremy since the Knicks shockingly did not complete their last gasp play-in / playoff push. So I will start as I always do by welcoming Mr. Cohen aboard and asking you, sir, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, John. That was a thunderous beatdown, which is nice, especially since the Magic stole 2 out of 3 earlier. So it felt good to see
thievery.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So it was nice to see the Knicks actually beat an opponent that they're most certainly better than, especially with this skeleton crew that Orlando was throwing out as they are developing. I guess we could massage that word a bit.
You might be opening Pandora's box there with like what is development, right? What counts as development?
Sorry, no, we saw it on one side of the court and it looked pretty nice, and we saw the other side that's hoping for ping pong balls. So I'll take the one that came out victorious and looked pretty good.
For sure. Yeah. It was a nice feel good win. For a lot of reasons. It was nice to see the young players that we've been rooting for all season and rooting for to play more minutes, actually play some substantial minutes. And I was actually, it's funny, I was watching this game. Mitchell Robinson, Obi Toppin, Immanuel Quickly, and RJ Barrett. Good game might be a little bit kind, right? To say that RJ Barrett had a good game tonight.
It's better.
It was better that, couldn't have been much worse than it was yesterday. He was okay, right? He ended up with however many points he ended up with, 20 some odd points, close to 30. Yet another game in which he's close to 30 points on a lot of shots. But look, that's what this last 3 months has been for him, learning how to be a number one option and occasionally it looking pretty messy when he tries to go about that. It's fine. Four young players, 4 good to very good games. How many times have we seen 4 Knicks have a good game in the same game this year?
I'm not sure, especially consider like how many Knicks were under the age of 25 when it happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because they all seem to be hired guns, which is fine because that's what you pay them to do. But no, like we have not seen this type of performance in a very long time, as far as I can remember.
As I pull up our live stream and I hit mute. See, it didn't make as much noise as last time, Andrew. We're gonna get to the super chats in just a minute. Before we get there though, I didn't get a chance to comment on yesterday's game, the Cavs game. And obviously neither did you. Any impressions you want to throw out there before we get into stuff for the post game?
I'll be transparent. I was busy during the game and I had not had the opportunity to watch it. So
you didn't miss much.
That's what I've heard. Yeah. I was thinking about when to consider it into my schedule and it just didn't happen today. Today was actually, do my taxes, clean my apartment, do things that were more important than watching a slugfest with the Cavs. But my understanding, just from being a box score reader, which I really don't like to do, but in this situation, I'll at least put my input and then let you expand since I'm sure you did see the game. It gets to a point where the ability to continue starting and playing Alec Burks over Immanuel Quickly, I want to give him being Thibodeau, the benefit of the doubt, and that this is some sort of like motivational tactic and he's getting quick to come off the bench and be a spark plug and grow. And I should be out there. I should be starting and doing this. But the reality is that's just not the case. It's just stubbornness. And I'm glad that he had the opportunity to get his first career triple double tonight. And I'm glad Alec Burks played well too. But
plus Body just tweeted out plus 44 in 32 minutes.
Yeah. But it's also the sort of thing where you can't talk about numbers. And I've talked about this before. You can't talk about numbers and how important they are and then say something that's against the numbers that would indicate that Quickly is the right choice, and he is the right choice. But for whatever reason, Thibs just doesn't see it that way. So it's just disappointing when again, it feels like gaslighting.
It's a microcosm. Yeah, no, the last 2 days, the last two games have been a microcosm of the Knicks season in a lot of ways. You know, I've been spending more time, and I did like kind of my eulogy / postmortem on the year after they were officially eliminated when the Hawks won on, I think it was Thursday. Was it Thursday night? Yeah, Thursday night. I'm like, I have a lot of thoughts about the year, and I'm like, starting to coalesce them into some kind of a larger picture in terms of like decisions not made, when the decisions that were made to go or stick with a certain direction, like, was there a reasonable alternative? What was the reasonable alternative? How soon should different decisions have been made? And it's like, we have all these little segmented parts of the season, right? Where it's like, we had the Kemba benching, and then Burks, and then Kemba's back, and then like it always, and you know, the Julius of it all, and now Julius is finally benched, you know, and it's just like the overall theme, to me at least, that ties it together is, it was very clear from early on. We just watched the Magic tonight. I mean, game 3, right? When it's like something's a little off in the water. I don't know what it is. That something was not quite working with what they wanted to do. And instead of going outside the box, many people, by the way, would not consider the decisions that we're talking about to be outside the box, right? They're very much like within the box. But for Tom Thibodeau, at least, instead of going outside the box and trying some different things, it's like, no, we're going to stay safe. We're going to stay committed. And look, we're going to look up, and like, tonight was the Knicks, I believe it was their 35th win of the year. Yeah, this was their 35th win of the year. They have 3 games left, right? So they could wind up with 36, 37, 38 wins, somewhere in that range. Like, okay, you accomplished your goal, right? You did not have, I mean, obviously they didn't make the play-in, but like, you did not have a disastrous, like, you did not have a record-wise disastrous season in the way that we know that this franchise is capable of having disastrous seasons. And I don't have to refer any fan who's over the age of like 25 to some of the things that have happened and transpired here over the last 20 years. And those seasons have been ugly for lots of reasons. But I'm not sure that what we got this year, and again, this is part of the reason why I defend Thibs, because he's a coach that's capable of, like, even when it seems like everything's going wrong, you're going to look, team is like respectable at the end of the day. There were missed opportunities here. There were missed opportunities. And to me, you saw it tonight, and he had a triple-double with Immanuel Quickly, you know, his first of his career, and just like looking the part of, like, maybe not a great starting point guard in the NBA, but certainly the best starting point guard for this team. And you wonder, could that decision have been made 20 games ago? Could that decision have been made 40 games ago? Could that decision have been made before the season started? Let's say they never went the Kemba route, and we don't have to get into that, but like, just all things that I've been thinking of the more I watch him produce. And yet, you know, we continue to get the veterans playing big minutes. And that is a decision that is being made. It's frustrating. Is it going to wind up mattering big time in the long run? I don't really know. Maybe. Do you think so? I'll ask you that, and then we can go to the super chats. Like, we've complained about all manner of things, others more than me, related to Thibodeau and his decision-making this season. Do you think that those decisions, other than frustrating the hell out of the fan base, do you think that they will actually materially matter long-term in terms of this organization's ability to, you know, win games?
Well, I'll wait to eulogize a little bit more. I know you'll write in your newsletter, and I think next week we'll probably put a cap on the season, but at least in terms of the development aspect, it feels more like a warning sign for Thibs, presuming he stays on next year, because like, we have seen him rely so heavily on his starting unit, and sure, the bench sees minutes, but it's like, when you're playing Alec Burks the most minutes for like any of the MVP candidates, like, he's stretched so thin,
a ton.
It's ridiculous. And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean for next year? If you are here, how does that impact it? So it's less like, in my opinion, how maybe missing out on like 30 minutes over let's say, an 8-game span, for example, impacts players. But it's also interesting that Ryan Arcidiacono, who I do not see as a mainstay here, at least certainly not in the rotation,
Nor do I.
is seeing significant minutes yesterday, and yet Deuce McBride can't seem to get much time off the pine regardless.
Well, that was a little bit funky because they were like,
sure, but even still, like there was something about it that irked me in a way. It was like, you have something here. You don't have to like, you don't have to, it shouldn't have had to get to this point, right? Like there are other
today was worse. Just
windows.
To be clear, like game flow yesterday and like foul situation had a little bit to do with that. Today, playing Alec Burks the entire first quarter and Deuce not getting off the bench until a minute and a half or so into the second quarter. Like that's the thing that has people being like, come on, you are gaslighting us now, as you said.
Right. And it's not, I mean, it's nothing against Arcidiacono. It's the man who's deploying the minutes. It's just, I don't quite understand what his logic is, because if he uses his head for
play the best players to win the games, Jeremy.
Sure.
Play the best.
But then a lot of that is like gut reaction. And oftentimes just statistically, our gut reaction isn't correct, like across the board. That's the numbers are what often paves the way. And the gut is oftentimes going to go the opposite direction. And with Thibs, if he's not going by the numbers, he's going by his gut, and his gut is not going to necessarily be correct. And I don't, again, like this was a great win. I'm not trying to disparage Thibs here. It's more just that like we have seen enough games to understand what his mindset is. So it's not like I don't see him ruining development opportunities for these players or stunting growth per se. But then you think about it, how that impacts them next year. Like it's not so much their long-term growth, like their primes are stunted because they're missing time. It's more just this team's ceiling is capped because of how he's deploying minutes. And if the ceiling is capped, then it's fewer winnable games that they have. Like how great would it have been for the Knicks to, until game 82, have been playing, knowing that they're going to be playing at least one more game? Would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
But we didn't get to that point. We didn't even get to game 80 where it's like, cool, let's keep trying. It was after Thursday's game. And now we're left with like, well, let's try again next year. Let's see how we can retool. And it's just frustrating because I look at the teams that are ahead of the Knicks and I fervently believe that they could eclipse one of them, just one of them.
I think that's fair. I mean, look, and to be clear, and then we'll get to the super chats after this. Immanuel Quickly is going to play almost 1,800 minutes this year. He's going to play a lot of minutes. Like he was not stunted. And I think the alternative, the devil's advocate to your point is that, well, making Quickly continue to come off the bench and like not handing him the starting job, put aside like whether he actually earned the starting job or not, but like continuing to kind of keep him in a more limited role may have actually helped his development because he's putting him in situations where he could be successful. And by the way, even in that backup role for a 20, 30 game stretch in the middle of the season, when he wasn't shooting the ball particularly well, like you could argue that maybe that was actually helping him because he wasn't actively hurting the team, but he also wasn't like really helping the team. And yet he still continued to get those minutes. So like, I think there's different parts of the argument there. And you could say that like, okay, we all want to see the kids more. Well, that means that something's going right with the development, but there is a gray area between Thibs is doing everything right. He's developing these kids perfectly. And like Thibs is a madman. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Like, and I think the truth probably lies somewhere in between, as we've been saying, I think for a lot of the year, and your mileage may vary on like which one of those extremes you skew towards.
But here's the crux of it. The most 11 played Immanuel Quickly duos, every single one of them has a positive net rating.
Yeah.
The 12th one is Nerlens Noel, and it's like minus 0.3.
But how much of that is exactly. So it's again, if you gave Thibs truth serum, he'd be like, yeah, exactly. I put my guys in situations in which they're successful.
But he can't say that and then trot out a lineup that is like barely treading water. And then beforehand, when he had the whole Kemba thing and well, right, but that's barely treading water. I mean, entering today's game where that was that starting five, with Randle being out, it was net, it was completely zero.
It was dead even. Yeah.
So like you're hoping to push versus
but you're like you're proving the point, which is like if the ceiling for if your justification is like this is the best and the best is dead even mediocrity, then maybe that signals to you that like even if the alternative is not, it has a possibility, maybe a strong possibility in your mind of not being the best, maybe it's still worth pivoting to based on where things are at this point in time, irrespective of whether or not it would be a better decision, like wins, losses, points scored, points against, like whether or not it's the best decision, it's a worthwhile decision given all of the factors at play. I think that's what is the best argument.
But he left meat on the bone. That's kind of the crux of it.
It's the unknown.
And now the Knicks are starving. And they're going to die.
Well, I don't know that they're starving.
The season's dead.
Listen, we'll get into it more because I think there's, as you have said yourself, a lot to be excited about, a lot to be hopeful for. And but I understand from the perspective of could more have been done to continue to be in the play-in race? And that's a very fair point. Okay, let's get to the super chats. Anthony 60 starts us off. Super duper mega max quickly and built him a statue. Then super max the statue. We were texting about this earlier today, or not earlier today, earlier a few days ago, about what Quickly's next contract is going to look like. And obviously a lot could happen next year, and it quickly could start for a team that wins 50 games next year. Who the hell knows? If I was to put money on it right now, I think 4 for 48 or maybe 4 for 52, something in that range feels like what he's going to get. Maybe a little bit higher. I could see him for Quickly. I could see him topping out at maybe 4 for. Would it shock you if they locked him up next summer for the your stepbrother's contract, the Herder contract? Wouldn't shock
That's
me.
what you meant by stepbrother. I'm blank. Herder's making 465.
464. That's to me
right.
Quickly ceiling for what they will negotiate next summer in an extension.
But then if you look at the rise in the salary cap, I think we could very easily be approaching closer to 475.
Oh, you're thinking he gets Brunson money. Okay.
But we're taking the percentage that we're applying for Herder, for example, and applying it to the next one. So it's like the average annual value is going to keep increasing.
I understand. Yeah. Okay.
So what? Let's say it starts out for Herder at 15 million, something like that, right?
Yeah, probably.
Then that's a lot of math to do in my head, but I think it'll be closer to 20 million if he keeps playing like this, because again, Herder is a quality rotation piece. That's for a younger player coming off of their rookie contract. That's kind of the market that you get. It's probably closer to 15, 18%. And
whereas
worth it.
Whereas Jordan Clarkson, who last year won 6th Man of the Year, is making, I think, 13 a year. But again, that guy,
it's weird though.
He has topped out at this is what he is. Whereas Kevin Herder is right now, this is what he is. Maybe he keeps getting better. Which of those two lanes do the Knicks see Quickly sliding into? And again, the role that they have him in right now, I think speaks to maybe they think he's in one lane, and I'm not so sure. I think he might be in a different lane.
Possibly. The thing about Clarkson is the deal he got most recently was his 3rd contract, because I know he was a 2nd round pick. Then he got paid. And then now he's getting paid again because the 6th man. With the 2nd contract, it's usually let's bet on potential. And the 3rd contract is either you're really good and we're going to pay you because you're really good, or it's with Clarkson, you're a known quantity. We understand what we're going to get for this money, and here's what we'll give you. That's why I think that he could very easily get to 75 million over 4 years, just based on the way he's playing and based on the way that the salary cap is going. I mean, we're seeing it move from 12 million to 122.
I know. It's going up.
And then before you know it, I mean, fortunately for the Knicks, actually, Quickly's going to get paid before the new TV deal comes in, makes the CBA, makes the salary cap go even higher. So yeah, I wouldn't rule out 4 years, $75 million.
Maybe it's not nuts. But Anthony, your Supermax suggestion is noted. Lunas Emirat at last, vengeance on the check notes magic. Man, at some point when I have some newsletters to fill up after the season, I will go through my 10, not most disappointing Knicks losses, but the 10 losses that really define the season. At least one of the Magic losses will be in there, potentially both. Because man, yeah, but that's, I mean, again, the season in a nutshell. I don't really know what else there is to say. Kevin Danishevsky chiming in early. As Danny said on the halftime, I think the biggest what if of the season might be if we started Quickly at the 20 game mark. Love everything about him. So again, Quickly went through a pretty hellacious shooting slump in the middle of the year, right around then, actually, as he was kind of figuring out the reins of, or how to be have the reins of a team as the point guard. When Derrick Rose went out with an injury, I think a lot of people would be like, well, Obi Toppin suffered the most. I think you could argue, at least initially, Quickly kind of suffered the most. Now, I think in the long term, it may have been best for him because it forced him to figure out how to run a second unit. And we're seeing a guy now that everybody thinks should be the starting point guard of the Knicks. And it's not a ridiculous opinion based on the eye test, based on his individual numbers, based on the on-off stats, based on everything you could point to. It's an interesting what if. It's an interesting what if. What if they would have pivoted to Quickly as the starting point guard early just to see what he could do? I don't know. Is it something you're going to wonder about?
Maybe. I think honestly, another what if that kind of gets the gears churning a bit more is what if Derrick Rose stays healthy?
Because then
it's like, but I'm not saying in terms of like the team and their record. I'm saying in terms of development, right? Like Quentin Grimes isn't going to break through the rotation.
Probably not.
Most likely. Quickly is probably going to be more of a secondary ball handler because Derrick Rose is going to take the reins. Now, of course, they can play off one another. It's not a huge issue, but Rose's injury opened the door for Quickly to basically do what he needed to do because Thibs wasn't going to trust Deuce, and Kemba Walker was already with the starting unit, and then he took Kemba out completely. Yeah. And Burke saw minutes starting. So if you have Rose in there, it's just a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And yeah, it would have been great to see Quickly be elevated. I think the biggest thing Quickly, as you were saying, John, his shot just wasn't falling towards the beginning. And a lot of people were very upset with that. And, we're saying all sorts of things. And then later on, it's like, well, the playmaking is there. We're seeing the strides there. He's just not hitting shots. And it's like, how do you separate the guy who makes shots and can still play well versus the guy who's, making shots and playing well? There's got to be some sort of middle ground there. And the middle ground was, hey, maybe the shooting's not the best, but he's growing in the areas that you wanted to do. We don't have to have this whole conversation of like, is he a point guard? Is he not a point guard? He is a player who's fantastic in the role he's in, who can hopefully graduate from that role as we are seeing before our very eyes. Who just has such a positive impact on the players around him that it's worth continuing and it's worth seeing him grow in that. So the discourse, like I would have loved to have seen him start at the 20-point game, 20
game mark. Yeah.
But at the same time, I just wish he would have featured more prominently in general. There were times where it was much more of a push and pull. And I was like, again, just let him fail. If he's going to fail, he'll learn from his mistakes and he'll keep growing, but that's in the past now.
So, yeah, just on the shooting thing, like Quickly has struggled shooting it this year. I want to be like fully upfront with that. But if you go back now a month and a half, so since February 16th, was February 16th the last game before the All-Star break?
Sounds about right.
Okay. His effective field goal percentage since then is .558, which is, that's outstanding for a player of Quickly's caliber. Who still does not take a ton of shots on the rim, although he's getting better at that. By the way, his assist percentage since then, 25.8 against a 9.5 turnover percentage, a respectable 22.6 usage. I mean, the numbers say that there's a real player here. And, tonight he got his first triple double. Good for him. I don't really care about the triple double. I care about what we've been seeing. So yeah, it's a good problem to have, I guess. What are you going to make Quickly into moving forward? Jessica, what's going on, Jessica? Awesome triple double from IQ, some great shots from McBuckets. All in all, a fun preseason-like game. It was not a preseason-like game. It was a preseason game. Like, let's be honest about what we just watched. Yeah, but it was fun. It was cool to see some stuff. I'm surprised. Well, I'll wait till somebody actually brings them up before I give Obi Toppin his flowers. Hush Zoo. Nothing against Burks, but I hope he gets traded. This old man seriously can't help himself. But also, Obi turns 25. It's time to give him a legit shot next year. Randle needs to get traded. Yeah, Randle needs to get traded could have been a theme for every one of our last, 15, 20 episodes of the show. Right?
Pretty much,
like,
yeah.
And nothing is
so much.
Yeah, so like, as far as Obi, like the Obi Randle dynamic, right? Which is like the Knicks have this player in Julius Randle Great beer mug, by the way. You got a little frosted beer mug.
Thank you. Yeah. It's
Hey, there
Knicks
you go.
Film School beer mug.
I didn't even see that. I literally said that without seeing that was
Yeah.
our beer mug. That's fantastic. I just thought it was chilled.
Did you also notice that this is like of RJ? It's essentially a mug shot. Did that occur?
It did
to you?
not.
Okay.
I wish I was that smart.
All right. I thought that was when you and Ernie worked on it. I thought that was in mind. But
shout out
Jeremy?
to our patrons.
Jeremy, I'm not even kidding. When my mom got the mug, because she's a patron, shout out to all of our patrons, by the way, who got this mug for being in the Ewing tier. She thought it looked like a milk carton mug shot, like a mist. Like, has anybody seen where RJ Barrett is? I like it. Don't get me wrong. I like it.
I like it too. Where was I going? Completely lost my train of thought.
Obi
yes.
Randle.
The Obi Randle interplay in terms of how much does the decision making on one impact the decision making on the other, and vice versa. If you put yourself in the mindset of the Knicks front office for a minute, where do you think they're at with this?
I think, well, we said this. I said this to you either on the post game last week or in one of the playbacks, but it went from like Julius Randle. Oh, what was it? Obi is making Randle expendable, but Randle's making himself expendable. My goodness. That is kind of the mindset that I'm thinking of, where you see someone like, yes, Obi is turning 25, but that's February of next year. So you've got this nice window of time where he's 24 years old. He's clearly progressing. Things are going well when he's in the lineup. And if Thibs isn't going to play both of them, then it presents an interesting opportunity, which is you need to proceed with getting rid of one over the other. And, we can talk about players that are out there. We can talk about all sorts of things. But in terms of like, when you look at Randle and you look at Obi and what's around, it's very clear that the direction that this front office is playing, well, they're going in the long con. That's what they're more focused on. And that's just not Julius Randle. And that's where it then comes in like, okay, well, like, what do you do with them? And we'll certainly approach that more in the offseason. But again, if you're not going to play both of them together, and Thibs really isn't, unless it's his last resort, then you have a very interesting minutes dynamic, because again, it's always been like 48 minutes minus what Julius Randle plays equals Obi Toppin. And if Randle's going to, like, Randle cannot keep playing 32, 33 minutes when Obi is playing like this, because otherwise you're leaving him with 16, 17 minutes. He needs more. He just does.
It's abundantly clear that some team out there, whether it's the Knicks or someone else, and Ian Begley, I thought it was very interesting. Ian picks his spots interesting, where he drops these little columns, and it's never an accident. I'll just say that. Where he's like, some team needs to see what Obi Toppin does with 25 to 30 minutes. Or he didn't say that exactly, but like I'm saying it, with 25 to 30, maybe even a few minutes more per game next season. Like, what he has shown this year warrants that investment by some team. Every Knicks fan out there that I know hopes it's the Knicks. That is the team that gives him that leash. I hope it's the Knicks. But at the same time, I wonder, like, if they approach the Randle trade front and they just are stonewalled, which I know you don't think that they will be if they do. And I tend to agree with you, although I wonder how high their price is, or their required, the price that they're holding him at. I don't know. Like, Obi has to play into this conversation, because you can't watch a guy do what he does and have the impact on the game that he does. And I know, like, today was a meaningless game, and like the Cavs game to a certain extent was a meaningless game. Who cares? But like, the guy has skills. The guy could do stuff. He's clearly a much more comfortable shooting now that he gets time to be in rhythm, and he doesn't worry that if he misses a 3-point shot, he's going to get yanked from the game. I don't know. I'm excited to.
I'm sorry. I thought you were going in a different direction, actually, with something
what
that Ian said. Well, because when he released his kind of mailbag video today, and
I didn't even see that.
He did. And one of the things that he said was that Julius Randle and his contract, that the value of what he brings is likely higher than that of how fans feel. And I felt seen, because this is something that I have been adamant about. And I just, listen, I think that you can find a taker. What Ian basically said was that there are teams that are interested in Randle because they see how he's being used in New York and what he has to offer, and that they have ways to go about changing that. And so I'm sure there are going to be some
if he's
teams that
willing.
are- of course, if he's willing.
And those teams
absolutely.
have to ask themselves how willing he's going to be.
Sure. But at the same time, if those teams feel compelled to make an upgrade, because this is the other thought process that I have going on in my head, and not to bleed too much into future offseason talking points. But if you look at specifically the unrestricted free agent class this year, it's shallow. It's not very good in terms
as
of
Channing
talent.
Frye said on this podcast. Poo-poo.
Yeah. Right. So when you consider that, and then if you imagine Julius Randle placed with that free agent group, and the fact that trading him won't hard cap you, seeing what you have out there, knowing that there are trades that you have to make in order to upgrade your team because the free agent market is just not there, that helps play in New York's favor a bit. And that's why it goes back to what Ian's saying, which is that it is a much more neutral value contract than a lot of fans seem to think. Because when we focus, it's when it's the only thing we see, our blinders are on. We, the grass is always greener and all these other, euphemisms you could use. But for Julius Randle, you don't have to worry about his next contract. He's locked. I know that some fans might think like, well, that's clearly a problem because his contract's an albatross. I'm telling you, it's not. It's 21% of the salary cap next year. It's going to be even lower the year after that. It's going to be lower after that. You're getting good value. But again, it goes back to what team is in need of a Julius Randle type player and how he will be used and how Julius wants to be used.
Comparing a potential Randle trade to what I'm about to bring up, it's not even apples. Forget apples to apples. It's probably not even apples to oranges. But I will just say a player named Ben Simmons, who didn't want to take a layup in the playoffs last year, was traded for James Harden. And it's, again, don't kill me for like making the comp, but like the point is, what you could look at a guy and be like, oh, his value is dirt. It's never going to get higher. You'll always find a team or a couple teams that are going to look at that guy and see things differently. Okay, from Jeremy E. Jeremy E's tough on me here. Stop hating on RJ, John. He's allowed a bad game yesterday after elimination. Meaningless game. He was also fine today. I'll give myself a shout out to the newsletter that I did this week on RJ's contract extension potentially. The reason I bring up the game yesterday and the reason I say today wasn't necessarily a great game is, and this is not just me, that this is when you look at the quote unquote disrespect for RJ around the league, it comes from two places. It comes from the fact that he has no perimeter game to speak of in terms of like real gravity behind the 3-point line, other than as a spot up threat. And he's just generally not efficient. And these are real concerns that people around the league have. And that's why like nobody thinks of him as a max player around the league. Like Knicks fans, some of them think of him as a max player. I would be comfortable if they signed him to a max contract, as I know you would be too, Jeremy. And because he means a lot to us and he means a lot to the Knicks and like for all those reasons, but just in terms of like on court stuff, anytime you have RJ inefficiency, it's like, just like a reminder. And which is why I didn't open the show being like, oh my God, we need to like go crazy about RJ Barrett being 3 for 13 or whatever he was. It's just like, okay, it's just another reminder that he's 21 and he has a long way. He has a long way. He has a little bit of ways to go, right? A little bit of ways to go. That's all that was I unclear about that, or am I being unfair? You tell me.
No, I mean, I liked the newsletter that you had. I thought it was very well written and in depth. And I agree. Yes, I would give RJ Barrett the max because I believe in the ability to improve. We've seen it from offseason. We know the determination's there. And when you look at the salary cap and, peaking it, it's much better. To me, it's like I would rather place the long-term bet on a wing who can do all sorts of great things to impact winning than arguably any other position. Like point guard, sure. But to me, I generally love the archetype of like, if you don't have a great wing, you're probably not going to get as far as you need to go.
Yep.
And it starts there for me. And every team's different, but that's my personal preference.
And if you're going to have a wing who's going to be kind of inefficient for his career, I'm not saying that RJ is, but just if get a guy who lives at the rim and gets to the free throw line like it's like he's drinking water, and those are two things that RJ Barrett is always going to do and he's only going to get better at. And which is why, again, I'm comfortable with it. And I don't mind the efficiency nearly as much as some people. I do think he needs to start hitting pull-up jumpers at some point, just a little bit. Keep defenses honest. Okay. Hush Zoo, I'm going to love this question. In all honesty, would you guys be able to consistently do the podcast / post-game show if we had both Westbrook and Randle on this team? Not sober. Jeremy?
I'm going to say hush, Zoo. I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not even going to entertain the question.
Andrew is losing his shit. Andrew's losing his shit. That's fed. That might be the...
No.
Yes.
You missed it because while you guys are talking about this basketball team, the chat is asking me about Morbius. And I dropped I'd rather have lesbius in the chat, and they've been giving me shit for it. I'm pretty sure you're about to get even worse for it. I hope so, at least.
I'm halfway through the shout out final review. I'm halfway through the pod, and I will be listening through the spoiler section because I'm not seeing this film.
Yeah, we didn't even say, okay, get ready, we're going to the spoiler section. It's like, I don't want you guys to go see this. We're going to spoil the movie.
Yeah, the tone of the pod, big fuck this shit.
It's really bad. It's really, really bad.
Yeah, I'll say when it comes to TV. Ryan Huang, I'm a bit upset that this couldn't happen sooner, but still happy that Redacted is iced and the kids are showing out. Missed the play-in live stream, but thanks KFS for keeping me sane this season. You're very welcome, and we appreciate you always chiming in on these things. Everybody who always chimes in, everybody comes and watches. It means the world to us. In terms of, so this is another thought that I had, a lingering thought watching yesterday, watching today. And somebody asked me about this one of the post games this week, and I'll ask you, Jeremy. Is just envisioning a world where Julius Randle didn't exist this season. And I guess the reason I'm asking is because let's imagine a world where Julius Randle doesn't exist on this team next season. Let's say, again, I know we don't think that this is the trade that's going to happen, but let's say they trade him for, Eric Bledsoe and a pick, right? And the Knicks waive Eric Bledsoe, or the Knicks, whatever. They put him on the bench. They don't use him. And essentially what we have next season is, give or take a young player. Maybe they make a trade, whatever. But this general framework. And let's say they bring in one other veteran to offer a little bit of gravity, whether it's by trade with Randle, whatever. But for the most part, you're getting these 6, 7, 8 kids, maybe add in a player that they pick. I think what we've seen this weekend is going to be a lot of what, it's going to be some highs, it's going to be some lows. And I think you're going to get a team that's probably going to win about how many games this team is going to wind up winning this year, maybe a little bit less. Do you materially disagree with that?
I don't. I will say this. Randle has obviously deserved the criticism that he has warranted. There's something to be said of the role that he plays in terms of taking and absorbing that criticism, where he is effectively a criticism meat shield. And we can just attack him, and we can say, I can't believe you didn't do this or that, blah, blah, blah. If you take that away and you just have the kids and maybe a couple veterans sprinkled in, and they start losing, next we'll go to Thibs, and rightfully so, right? I mean, to me, they're you can't talk about one without talking about the other this season. But in terms of on the court, I'm a little concerned if Randle's gone and the Knicks haven't traded him for an actual upgrade along with other pieces, that people will then start to, sick the kids.
Well, it's about roles, right? Because
Sure.
Randle occupies the number one dog on his role. And you, Jeremy Cohen, more than anybody else, have sat here on this podcast and said repeatedly, correctly, we would be looking at him differently if he were in a different role. My only pushback consistently against that is how much does he want to be in a different role, which maybe we'll find out next year.
It's valid.
Yeah, but your point is nonetheless well taken, because once he disappears, well, then you need a new number one. And then RJ Barrett is your new number one, right? So then you need a new number two. And how does Immanuel Quickly now, or whoever it might be, look as a number two? How does Obi Toppin look as and it just keeps going on and up. So whereas Julius Randle has been, I would say unequivocally, the worst number one in the league this year, maybe second worst, whatever, but he's in the bottom. He does still occupy that role. And that's, I think, what you're hitting right here.
Yeah. I also look no further than the 2 games he missed during COVID. Granted, there were other players that weren't there. The Knicks were, depleted. A lot of teams were. But if you look at those games, like just think back to what some of the criticisms were. I mean, it was staggering in terms of, and they were losing, and it was like, well, what are you going to do? Because Randle's not playing. And you need that type of player to absorb not just the criticism, but also be higher usage. So the attention by the defense is taken back a little bit. It's like that's RJ's operating as a first option, which is great. But you also, at least in my opinion, need to upgrade at one of the positions in the starting lineup, because of the fact that you then need to be able to say, like, you got RJ, you got whoever this guy is who can command the attention of the defense and let like life be easier for everyone around them. Yep. That's why, to me, it's not just like get rid of Randle and like, it's a sunk cost. Do whatever you can to offload him. You have to find the right deal.
No, it's a responsible decision. I don't always like being responsible though. Joe Vogel, what's up, Joe? I think we need to go the other way rather than chasing the play-in next year. Trade Randle, starting lineup of IQ, RJ, Grimes, or Reddish, Obi, and Mitch. Look, I don't think that's what the lineup you're going to see is. Do I think that there would be like, man, the currency that would show me that Leon Rose has with James Dolan? If Leon Rose is like, we're gonna trot out this group, I'd have a lot of respect for it. I would love it. I would love, because like literally whatever would happen, it's like they surprise and win, I don't know, and screw around and maybe compete for the play-in. Great. They win 28 games and like they get the 5th spot in the lottery. Okay, there's logic to that too. At least you're theoretically doing some good stuff along the way. You don't think there's a prayer that happens, do you? No.
It doesn't. Realistically, right? It would be great in theory, but we're looking at a team that made the playoffs last year. They missed the playoffs this year. Next year, they're going to take another step back. And if they're offloading Randle, it's going to be for a player who either isn't good, period, because they're not going to be in the starting lineup, or it's going to be for someone who is good, but is often injured enough where they're not even really going to play. And then it's like the game that you got to play if you are Leon Rose is, how do I keep taking incremental steps to get to where I need to eventually be?
Yeah.
If you trade Randle for something that's like future assets and a bloated contract that doesn't really help you, what you're saying to James Dolan is, I'm giving the fans in year 3 of my tenure the worst product that they have ever seen under our administration, and hope for the best in terms of picking in the lottery. And the truth is that the Knicks probably have more talent to get them further away. Like, in my mind, if you take away Randle and you have this team playing, and as you said, John, they're probably in a similar spot. Let's say they are in a similar spot. Are fans going to be happy if the Knicks finish with the 8th pick overall and all these young players? Some might say yes. Some might say, hey, they're growing, they make some improvements. Others might say, well, once again, classic Knicks, you're half-assing it, right? Because you're not making the playoffs. You're not the worst team. Your lottery odds are okay, but they're not as great. Sure, there are teams that have won being the 7th, the 8th worst teams going to the lottery.
Yeah.
But it's a huge risk, and you have to keep growing. You have to keep building. And just realistically speaking, this team is going to take a step forward, whether it's a small step or a big step. But it's not going to be trading Randle and then kind of retreating back into the standings to hope that you get further into a top pick in a great draft.
I'll say this. We all know what their goal is. Their goal is to trade for Donovan Mitchell or Zion Williamson or both, I guess. Maybe throw in another name or two in there. Like, we know that that's what Leon Rose wants to do. Leon Rose, this is not a 5-year plan. Or, I mean, it is, but not the type that usually refers to. Like, running out just, again, quickly, RJ, Cam, Obi, and Mitch, that's not trotting out, Emmanuel Mudiay and like Damian. No shade on Damian Dotson. I love Damian Dotson, but like Damian Dotson, like there's a lot of pedigree there. There's a lot of like guys who have produced at this level in big games, in big moments. Like, I don't know.
But how many teams have really trotted out a lineup of 5 players, all of whom have like 4 of them will have basically still be on their rookie contracts, and the 5th will be Mitchell Robinson, who will have just been extended. It, like, we saw the Knicks lose coincidentally to this Orlando Magic team earlier in the season that played the youngest lineup in NBA history. And what is their record? worst. They are the worst team in the league. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that they are.
Yeah, but
I'm not trying to say that this team.
We have more talent.
Sure,
legitimate talent. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I'm not disagreeing, but it's nice to have this idea that, play the kids, start the kids. The reality is that if you're looking at this team, they're going to play at least one veteran, like an Evan Fournier type.
Yeah.
And they'll probably want to bring in someone who's more of a 4 than like Cam Reddish is, or like Cam. I'd love for him to win a starting spot in the rotation, but he needs to win it from that player. You can't just give it to him because like we've seen some nice highlights and we've seen some major drawbacks, and I kind of just want to see him grow. And if he can steal that role, great.
Yeah.
But he's probably not going to steal it. And we're talking about Thibs here. Like if Thibs is still here, what are real, like, do we have negative odds on these 5 playing?
I'll say this. I think if you swap out IQ for like Malcolm Brogdon, or for example, just as a name that we've heard tossed around as possible, like I'd give you some odds on that. I do. Like Brogdon, RJ, Reddish, or Grimes, Obi, and Mitch. I don't think there's a 0% chance that lineup gets sent out there.
I wouldn't say 0, but again, we know Thibs likes to rely on his veterans.
Yeah, it does.
It just does.
All right. Mike Conrad, what's going on, Mike? Is it crazy to think that we can make the playoffs next year simply by centering the offense around Immanuel Quickly, RJ, Obi, and trading Julius for picks and an expiring contract? I didn't even see this question before we just had that whole discussion. I think we kind of answered it. The plan makes this question a little bit more difficult. I will just say that I think that team would be a little light on talent to really compete for the play-in. And there will be people who will listen to this and they'll be like, you're insane. That team could win 40 games and this and that. Look, could they win above 30? Yeah, I think they could win above 30 games, probably. Playoffs play-in, I'm not quite sure I'm there.
Well, if you're taking that step back, because let's be honest, you have to look at the 10 teams ahead of you and think which ones are going to drop. And you also have to think about which of them are going to get better. Because if you're like Charlotte, you're probably going to find some sort of answer at the 5. And that is a key element to how they can really improve and take a next step.
Other teams are coming too.
Right. Washington's not too far behind the Knicks.
Yeah.
And they've been missing Bradley Beal for half of the season pretty much. So it's, and Indiana, like, I know that there's this mindset of, oh, well, they're bad this year, so they're going to go into this lengthy rebuild. They're not.
No,
this is a retool. It's not a rebuild. So if they try to get better and they've got plenty of cap space and they have a great draft pick and all these different things, like you're talking about a Knicks team that is, you hope, staying afloat with where they are. Got to keep improving in that sense.
And I'm not sure I see the obvious team that's going to fall back. That's above the Knicks right now. I see continued, like Toronto's going to get better. Like all these teams are not getting worse. Joe Vogel, hot take: trading Immanuel Quickly, Obi Toppin, and multiple firsts for Donovan Mitchell would stagnate the franchise in the same way that Melo did. He's one-dimensional and bad on defense. I would just respond, and this is me. I'll say it so nobody else has to. Not the biggest Melo fan. They were a couple of bounces of the ball away from going to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think, look, it didn't happen. I get it. There was also the Billups-Stoudemire amnesty decision factored in there, which kind of hovers over everything about how that team was able to be put together moving forward. Like the Melo trade was the correct trade. And I know it didn't end well. And I've been harsher than most on how it ended. If this team can get Donovan Mitchell, they should probably go get Donovan Mitchell.
Proud of you, John. I'm proud of you.
Oh, why? Thank you so
Growth.
much. Thank you so much.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Yes.
Growth. Yep.
I appreciate what he did. You know.
I know. No,
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear you say it on the record for our thousands of people watching. You know.
I don't hate Melo. I've never hated Melo. I just got in my feelings towards the end there when it was clear the direction of the franchise was without Melo. That was the proper direction, and I held it against him that, he used the tool that was given to him, right? Nobody forced that. He used the no trade clause, and that was it. That's all it was.
You ever used
your audio? Your audio cut out very quickly, John. It said and then it went silent for a second. And then I just heard hate Melo. So I can only assume that you hate this man. I don't.
You're terrible. You're terrible.
Yeah. You've never I don't know how the DOE works, but do they ever get on you for like using personal days or vacation days? And it's like, but they're my personal days. They're my vacation days. Why would I get in trouble for using them?
They have not they have not yelled at me.
But in that situation, if they were to get upset with you, something that's like in your contract, that's quite literally the same thing as Melo taking advantage of the fact that I was given a no trade clause. I'll waive it when I like the deal. As well as not leaking stuff to Charlie Rosen, so that way he can write for a website that doesn't exist anymore. And
what was that website?
That was fanrag.com.
Oh my God, FanRag.
Yeah, remember that?
By the way, I lost the super chat stream, so I'm gonna try to pull it up again.
How?
As you do that,
just refresh it.
I'll just say this in terms of Donovan.
Jeremy, go.
Yes, you could look at the defense, and it's most certainly not great. You could also look at the offense, and it is great. The reason I say that is because we can look at the flaws, but also embrace what he does exceptionally well. And this year, he has taken such a huge leap in the playmaking department. And what is the one thing that we often talk about is finding someone who can make plays and be a star. And I think that I'm still trying to understand what exactly the package might look like for someone like Donovan Mitchell. But if you're gravitating, I don't fault anyone for necessarily thinking this way, but like, if you're thinking it's going to cost X, Y, Z, and all these players, like maybe, but I'm also a little bit skeptical that a player who has also not been on an all NBA team, granted it's a competitive conference and league, but he's a very good all-star, and we'll see what happens. But I think as Utah also starts to crumble, if he does want out, there's also going to be the thoughts of like, can Donovan Mitchell be a number one? And if the thought is that he can't be a number one, then his price will drop. And if his price drops, then it also will be dictated by the market. What are teams offering? So a lot to discuss, a lot to honestly see. Yeah.
We'll get there.
2 hideous games, but
yeah. I may have skipped a super chat or two. Andrew, if I did, let me know because link stopped working.
You're at Juanon. Is where
see, I don't have that. So I'm going to the next one that I could see, which is Matt, Aussie Knicks fan. So resend me the link.
John, the link is right above where you said resend.
I know, and it doesn't work anymore. It says the link is expired or something. I don't know. I'm just going to keep going. Matt, I can't wait for more IQ, Obi, Grimes, RJ lineups next season. Deport redacted to Pluto. What is Pluto offering? I don't know what Pluto is offering. Are they under the cap? We'll see. Also, loving this live pod recording. Make it a regular thing. Yeah, you'll hear more about that moving forward. But this is not the last time that you will see us do one of these babies. Quite the contrary, actually. So get excited for that. Andrew Claudio, what?
We'll do this. Well, wait to read mine.
Okay.
Do you see? Is the link working for you now?
I'm going to check right now.
Check right now. Live podcasting.
Hold on.
There you go.
And I'm waiting to read your thing.
Yes, waiting to read mine.
Oh, yeah, now it works. Okay.
Now it works. Okay. Go to Juanon and then work your way up.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay. What's the perfect offseason for all three of you? Mine involves LeBron requesting a trade and fulfilling everyone's dream of a stretch 5.
What we say,
our
John?
Patreon.
What we say, John?
Yeah, we said it. Also getting Randle out of here. I know, not happening. I laugh because it's not happening. If LeBron wants to request a trade to the Knicks, sure, why the hell not? My ideal offseason, my perfect offseason, I think I've said this already, is they trade Randle for a first and like a decent player. I don't know what that trade would look like. Again, the fake Anthony Simons sign and trade that they came up with, like I love that. Something of that ilk. If we get Brogdon for Randle, I'd love that. Trying to think what else. Jeremy, you got one?
I'll just say what you said.
Okay, that's what he said. Got it.
That's what
Andrew, anything for you?
I mean, not to sound repetitive here, guys, but we've gotten this question a lot, and it all kind of centers around getting Julius Randle on a different team in a way that doesn't. Right, but like not dumping him, I think, is what our collective message has been. I know there are some out there at ham sandwich mode. I can't wait for people to watch John making faces at Scarlet Ray and have no idea until she shows up into the picture. It's all right. I'm at the point where the number one goal has to be moving on from Julius Randle and having some type of turnover on this roster, especially if they are going to bring back this coach.
Kevin Danishevsky, Taj being in the 4th really bugged me. Why not try RJ at the 4 and Obi at the 5? We need to try things to procure data so we can analyze it. I'll play devil's advocate for a second. I agree with you. The notion that Taj Gibson is playing any minutes at all for this team right now, to say nothing of Alec Burks and Fortier, is like pretty absurd. I'm not sure you're learning anything in these games. I think it's good for the players to get the experience. I think it's good for like Obi Toppin and for like RJ Barrett and Immanuel Quickly to like continue to work some things out. Like I think the minutes are important. Should the Knicks be making any decisions based on what they see in these games? Like a game tonight against the Magic? I don't know about that. Jeremy?
Small sample size.
Small sample size.
Like it's one game against the worst team in the league. And I don't mean to take away from that. It's more just like, yes, you could use this as an opportunity to experiment. But to me, the experimentation was seeing Obi Toppin once again do very well as a starter.
Yes.
And see Immanuel Quickly just play well, period. Like,
so you're right. That goes against what I just said and is correct because like, what can Obi Toppin do if he gets in a rhythm? Well, apparently he can hit shots. You know, I mean, not the most pressure shots, but like shots nonetheless. So, and Kevin follows it up with Quickly's points per shot attempt has been in a higher percentile than last year. I'm sure I'll take your word for that. Again, I don't really care. I've never once questioned Immanuel Quickly's ability to be a dynamic shooter at this level. I think he's going to be fine. I didn't care about the slump when it was happening. I mean, I cared about it because it was like, you know, hurting them. And it was hurting them from winning games, or keeping them from winning games potentially, but he'll be fine. He's awesome. Lunas, again, back with more. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think we're 9-2 when Immanuel Quickly has 30+ minutes.
I'm pulling up his game log now.
I have it up. I was looking at it before. That's how I got
never mind.
When he plays, what is it? More than 31 minutes?
More than 30. So more than 30. He's played 10 games in which.
So it's a little bit
6-4. They're 6-4.
Yeah, and it's odd because like the top 3-minute games for him this year, they've lost all 3. And 2 of them were when he started, which like again, I just looking at this off the top of my head, like maybe they were like missing other guys or this and that. Like Immanuel Quickly's good.
He's a winning player.
He's a winning player. Thank you. Like I don't need any stats yes, the net rating on off and all that stuff, like that all helps, but like he's a winning basketball player. You don't need to overthink it. But yeah. Got Matt. This from Andrew Claudio. Long time, Andrew. Yeah, there you go. Can you give me my friend a birthday shout out? His name is Jeremy, and he's a great guy despite never seeing Remember the Titans. #27 years. I was gonna save it to the end, but I'll do it now. Jeremy Cohen. You're a beautiful man. You are a wonderful human being. You put up with my shit every week. I don't know how. And you do it with a smile and you humor me and all of the things. You deserve all of the best things in life for your 27th year on this. Is it your 27th year on this earth? Because you're turning 27, right?
Yes. Turning 27. So
this will be your
28th
year on this earth. Are you excited about 28?
Don't age me. I'm
jeez.
I'm 27. Andrew did the same thing today. He was like, "Are you 27 or 28?" And like, did my parents fudge my birth certificate or something? Have I been a year older this whole time? No.
Wait, so you're turning 27?
Yes. I am. Turned 27.
So this is his 28th year.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
so you were like, is he excited for 28?
Yes, I get it.
Right,
in a year. Yeah.
Well, thank you first and foremost, and it's always a blast and a pleasure to work with both of you. And yeah, tomorrow maybe I wake up and I feel the same. Maybe I feel another year older. It's I don't know how to explain it. Like, as I was saying to Andrew, well, John, you're in a similar boat. I said to Andrew, it's probably like
No, I'm
you
not
get
in a
to a
similar
point-
boat. I'm fucking old.
I'm getting there. That I feel like when you get to before you get to 30, it's like this ticking clock of, oh my God, I'm getting to 30. And then you get past 30, it's like, okay, that's like, yeah, that's life. I'm past 30.
Yeah, I stopped counting. I know John would like to stop counting at a number that high, you know.
Next up, we're going to the next super chat, which is
That
from
was the
Matt.
ultimate present.
There you go.
P.S. Happy birthday, Jeremy. There you go.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Matt
Matt.
Aussie
Okay.
Knicks fan.
Great.
John, Jeremy, when we're done, go through the chat because I asked them to wish you all. There's a whole thread of happy birthdays there for you. Okay,
Well, thank you.
Beautiful. I hate both of you. Dom Cappuccini kind of reminds
I
you
was
of a-
asking you a legitimate question. Andrew's the
Yeah.
one who sniped you, much like JFK. But
jeez.
What did JFK make it to? He made it to 40 what?
he made it to the hospital.
Great. What? No,
Oh
he
my
didn't.
God.
Jesus. Jeremy.
Hey, my
Unnecessarily
birthday
as it
tomorrow.
turned out.
I get this.
Oh my God.
I'm going to read Dom's comment. Kind of reminds you of the last time we were here. I don't know what this is referring to. Back when we thought we had a squad, LOL. If nothing else, or the last time we were, what, in Orlando? Oh, yeah. Last time we were in Orlando. If nothing else, RJ and Quick keep on growing. Yeah. Listen, a lot of things to be excited about moving forward for this team. Seriously. Kevin Danishevsky is critical of me here. Okay, here we go. John, I love you, but I feel like you're talking out of both sides. If Thibs coaching is worth defending, agreed, he can squeeze 40 wins from that team. Could Thibodeau squeeze 40 wins out of a team with, like, let's give them some solid bench veterans, whether it's Fournier and Burks or like someone else with that starting lineup?
JFK was 46 when he died.
Okay. 46 pretty good years.
Yeah.
President, Marilyn Monroe. JFK could have squeezed 40 wins, I think, out of the squad. He was that man was inspirational.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. I can't see it. I can't. 40 wins?
Well, let's put it this way. He didn't squeeze 40 wins from this team.
Yeah, but okay, could devil's advocate again for a second. Like, let's say they take Randle off, and Randle, in fact, did have this like awful effect that some of us think that he may have had on this team, and like you replace that inefficiency with like RJ in the number one role, getting a little bit more inefficient, and like you bring in maybe. So like, here's the pushback I'll give. I think the starting lineup that you offer there, it still has Mitch as the center. I could see a world where the Knicks with RJ Barrett as their best player and like Immanuel Quickly / Obi Toppin / Cam Reddish is like their second, third, fourth best players, wins 40 games. I think I'm going to need a 5-out offense where it's like, okay, RJ's our engine and you can't stop us because we have this thing that we could go to every time. I think that would help convince me, but I don't know if that's realistic.
But two things, though. The first is, I know you talked about like off the bench, Burks, Fournier. There's no plausible reality where Thibs would be cool with having those vets come off the bench. They would be starting. They would be playing 35 minutes. Exhibit A is literally the month of March. But the other thing
right now, maybe the young players get better.
I mean, how many minutes was he giving to Kemba Walker when we know that he didn't even want Kemba Walker in the rotation?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Jeremy, the better example is the month of February.
That too.
We had Kemba and Taj and all these guys playing minutes, and Quickly's getting benched for second halves. You know.
Yeah, I still can't get that Timberwolves game out of my head. And I hear you with the stretch five, but Thibs has loved having, like a rim running five who could collect boards, and the Knicks don't push in transition. They make a choice to get rebounds and move. And I think that like having a stretch five, it depends. Are you talking about a stretch five like more? I mean, there's only one Karl-Anthony Towns, for example, but like someone who's taking a lot of threes.
I'm talking about Miles Turner.
So the thing with Miles Turner is on the defensive end, he matches up closely, although again, he's not going to be the rebounding type, which Thibs really wants. So then you go to the offense as well. And who's who's cleaning up the offensive glass? I don't really know.
It's fair. Miles Turner's not a great offensive rebounder.
Terrible. And
good
so
call.
it's like if you're having Obi in there,
And if you're losing that, that's big.
there's a lot of pressure to essentially hit shots. And we know what a Thibs offense looks like. It's not great. Even with, other talent, it's just the way it's designed. It's not as creative as it should be.
Yeah, it's good if you have talented players.
But it has a ceiling to it.
I don't know. I mean, I would argue that the Minnesota offense that was ranked 5th in the league is pretty good.
But the ceiling came in the postseason. Like the playoffs is when things switched up on them. And that's the same thing happened with Randle and the Knicks. They cut off the engine. And then what happened? Things disintegrated. And that's my concern, where it's like Thibs can get you to be a high floor team. But when you need to like hit a new ceiling, that's where he struggles. And that's where you need to turn a new leaf.
I think I would have liked to see what Thibs could have done with a healthy Derrick Rose in those early years in Chicago. And I wonder how much look, we don't have to talk about this now. It's irrelevant, but how much would the narrative of Thibs have turned if Rose never gets injured and he had a true top 5 guy, to fall back on and build an offense around, because those are the guys that tend to win in the playoffs and win championships.
Yes. But we've talked about this before. The idea of blaming Thibs on the Rose injury is wrong. Yeah. All I'll say is if you go back to that game and the amount of time that was remaining in the game and the lead that the Bulls had, and Derrick Rose, or I can't remember if they were in the lead or it was the game was out of reach, and having Derrick Rose in the game, period, and he got hurt.
Yeah.
And that is a direct response to Thibs' stubbornnness that has continued until this day. And we saw it with RJ Barrett in Denver.
Perfect transition. Jeremy E with our last super chat comment. You realize RJ has been playing on a bum ankle since the All-Star break, right? On an RJ defense tour today. Also think he still doesn't get enough foul calls. It's fair. It's all fair. It's fair on Rose. It's fair on RJ. I think in regards to RJ, I think the best is yet to come. And that's why, getting back to Kevin's question about, what's the ceiling of a team in which RJ Barrett is their best player. Look, I've doubted him before, and it got me this guy right here. Mr. Crowan Barrett Jr.
Mm-hmm.
So
Rangers just tied it, by the way, Jeremy. They scored 3 goals in the last 10 minutes.
Woo.
Yeah.
Go Rangers.
There's one more super chat, by the way, just to piggyback.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
On what Jeremy said about you guys are going back and forth about the ceiling of Thibs.
Yep.
How much do you guys subscribe to the Pythagorean wins and losses? What you're based on your net rating, what your record should be?
I think it's valid, and if I'm not mistaken, that means the Knicks should be about a game or two under 500.
Well, they're at 30. The Pythagorean for them right now, I'm looking at it, is 37 wins. So they're not actually that.
Is that
far
updated
off.
After today?
No, but that's true. Their net rating went much closer to.
So their net rating.
So they might be closer to 38 or 39 at this point, which would be about a 500 team, which makes you wonder if you get rid of the Randle effect next year. I actually do think, Jeremy, that Thibs could get 40 wins out of this team. But to your point, what is that? I don't what's that ceiling in that, if that's the case?
But it's also
if it is, if
it's not going to be
that get us there, then that's different. But
sure, but it's not there is no world where it's going to be the kids getting the Knicks there with veterans.
That's the other part. You don't trust him to, him to do it. Yeah.
But if you got 40 wins out of a team that started Immanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish, or Quentin Grimes, Obi Toppin, and Mitchell Robinson, that would mean that young players on that team look very fucking good. Sure. And that's where it gets them. Andrew, it gets them in the trade discussion very prominently for one or more stars.
I'm just wondering,
we're never going to get to that point. It's never going to happen.
Does this coach allow those kids to look very good? Is the point.
Last super chat here.
There's a couple more just rolled in.
Okay. So, trade Randle for, say, Harrison Barnes. That was my first Randle fake trade idea months and months ago. Let Rose back up quickly and draft a wing like Okagi from, I hope I pronounced that name right, from Kansas, and Thibs will squeeze 40 out of that group. You might be, if they got Harrison Barnes For Randle, I'm a big Barnes guy. I think Barnes is a good player in the right role. So I don't think that's nuts. What?
Let me just put it this way, though. Do you know
Just
how
can
many?
hear- I can see the chats now. Like, why
What?
is Harrison Barnes playing 39 minutes over?
So that's
Cam
exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Look at how
I can
many
see it
minutes
now.
Harrison Barnes has averaged this year. And then look at Obi Toppin. Like, because I'll be honest, one of the prevailing thoughts for Randle is also, in my opinion, getting Harrison Barnes. The downside of it is it blocks Obi Toppin. And if Thibs is still here,
there's a
you're
difference.
he's
Hold
more
on.
versatile, but at the same time, you're still looking at a guy who's going to take up minutes, right? Like, even if Harrison Barnes doesn't play the 4, he's going to play the 3. RJ Barrett is going to play 37 minutes, most likely. When you get Cam Reddish in there, you hope that he can play at least 15 minutes. It's adding.
Can we have this conversation real quick?
I
Because
was
you're
planning on having it for a cap or no cap, but we can do it right now.
very briefly. The big difference is that Randle can play, Barnes can play the 3. Not a lot of 3. It's not his best position. His best position is the 4, but he could play some 3. Thibs loves going to a 9-man rotation. So you could still get Barnes his 32 minutes a night, which is probably what I would imagine he would play if he was here. Half of those could be at the 4, maybe a little bit more than half. 24 of those minutes could be at the 4. That opens up another half of the game for Obi Toppin. And then when Barnes is at the 3, you're getting RJ some time at the 2, and there's your 9-man rotation.
Let me ask you though.
Yeah.
As you said all of that,
Do I think it's actually going to
any
happen?
part of you believe that will actually happen? Okay. So given that, the fear that I have of trading Randle for a player who's going to play the same position is the impact it has on Obi Toppin. If Tom Thibodeau's here, I just don't see Toppin playing ahead of Barnes. And then you got RJ playing all these minutes. You've got Cam. We haven't even talked about Burks, for example, because how he plays it. Like, they're going to have to do some pruning of the roster and consolidate regardless.
That's a
different
issue. Yeah,
I agree. Okay. But even without talking about Alec Burks, we're already at a point where it's like, where are these minutes coming from? You can't have them just materialize. They've got to be made to work here. And I struggle to see how, when you bring Harrison Barnes into the fold, Thibs is able to say, let me pull back on Barnes's minutes. He's going to say, look, I see a guy who's 30 years old who is absolutely deserving of playing at least 33 minutes a game. And I don't see Thibs being creative enough to bring Obi into the fold.
We'll see. I don't think it's going to happen because I don't think Sacramento wants Randle anymore. Robert Cross, GMAC. It's great to see you here. Just tuning in. The Knicks have a star point guard in the making. He goes by IQ. FTLOG, let it happen.
For the love of God.
Oh, for the love of God.
By the way, Jay Witt followed up his super chat from earlier by saying Barnes would back up Obi, which
that's not happening.
No, he would start. I don't know. I like it in theory if Barnes would back up Obi. I also in Jeremy's in his corner. I don't want to create a log jam.
Can I say what Harrison Barnes' last 10 games are in minutes played for a team that is worse than the Knicks and was eliminated from playoff contention well before New York was?
Well, not
dating back to March 12th.
Yeah.
35, 37, 22, 24, 41, 33, 40, 38, 35, and most recently 36.
Thibs is salivating.
Of course.
I'll just say this. I think the Randle of it all clouds a little bit of what I'm able to assume Thibs does or does not think of Obi Toppin, because, and I say it specifically in that way because I think we all believe that Thibs foolishly was like, Randle's my horse. I'm gonna ride my horse until he runs off a fucking cliff, which he did. But like, does that necessarily mean he thinks less of Toppin, or is it just like, I know one thing as an NBA head coach, and it's that I have to feed my best player and play my best player X amount of minutes and blah, 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 blah. And I don't have a choice on this team because Randle's my guy and I need to go to all of that. Maybe he's a little higher on Obi than we realize.
Maybe, but we also have a very sufficient enough amount of data in Chicago, in Minnesota, and here in New York of him playing veterans over the younger players because he trusts them and because Thibs
depends
wants
on
to.
the veteran. Depends on the veteran.
So Taj
Does it,
Gibson
though?
getting how many minutes over
Yeah,
Jericho
like,
Sims? Like
Burks is still starting and playing a significant amount of minutes.
Taj is the best player of all time. So
you know what? Good counterpoint. I got nothing.
I can't disagree with that.
Yeah.
and like Deuce is like it's I'm sorry, I'm not comparing. I'm not putting Deuce McBride in Obi Toppin's class right now. I think, and look, let's
I don't
see
think
what
anyone
happens.
is.
Yeah,
To be candid, it's more just like, but Deuce has had a longer way to go, right? Because he started the season 4th on the depth chart.
Yes,
and then Derrick Rose got hurt, and then Kemba Walker was removed from the rotation. Even then, Alec Burks slid in above him. So like Thibs has done everything in his power to play veteran players ahead of the younger guys until he was told to take the toys away. That's a problem.
I'd be curious. Maybe the organization makes a commitment to see what they have in Obi next year. We'll see. Jessica says, "Happy birthday, Jeremy! Mazel tov on making it another year. Here's to many more."
Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate that.
And Robert Cross with one more. First time, long time, John.
He's got a couple. Don't worry.
I just finished Blood in the Garden. Thank you. What's your favorite part of the book? Good question. My favorite part of Blood in the Garden. Oh wait, no, I skipped ahead. Wait. I was like, wait,
I
missed. Okay, I'll go back.
Robert Cross, you're the man, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Robert Cross.
Hey, Robert.
I'll go back to your original next super chat comment, but I'll just answer this one now.
What?
I think all the Riley stuff, which I know there's a lot of Riley stuff. I think any Riley behind the scenes, how he interacted with the team. I think the Riley Charles Smith stuff was interesting. Actually, it was my favorite part. This is sad because this is the single biggest event that sent the franchise spiraling downward, arguably over the last 25 or 20 years. The dissolution of the marriage between Riley and the Knicks and the behind the scenes on that. I thought that was fantastic reporting from Chris Herring, and it was just a very compelling read. So yeah, I would say that. Good stuff.
The Stark stuff is what stood out to me.
Oh, the Starks like growing up? Or...
Yeah. Like I've always been fascinated by John Starks' story, and it'll shock nobody that when he came into our party earlier this year, I then began a bit of a back and forth trying to get him on the pod, and then for some reason Madison Square Garden got involved, and that went nowhere. But yeah, those little notes were where I go to.
The whole book is great.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Cross with another one. GMAC, should we read anything into Benji not being here? Do the KFS faithful need to be concerned? That's that.
I'm right here.
Listen, we're
gonna look at
I'm
the
saying the fact that Benji I look alike. That's why I was saying. Never mind. Didn't lie.
No,
I got it.
I think it's the whole like, are we gonna lose Benji and free agency?
We're not losing. I would pay anything to keep Benji.
Yeah.
You read Jay Witt's follow up. Barnes would back up Obi. Believe it when I see it. And then another one for Robert Cross. Happy birthday, Cutlets. I don't want to block Obi Toppin. To that end, we could trade the Gritch for a second rounder. We are good with second rounders. They're not going to do it. They're not.
Man,
do it.
refresh your page. Robert Cross again. I swear.
What?
Another one for Robert Cross.
Another one. Okay, here we
refresh
go.
the
Robert
page.
Cross. One more. Listen, Robert Cross is on fire. Thank you, Robert. You are one of the MVPs of the season. Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Question for all of us. You have one choice. Okay, this is a serious question. A, get rid of Randle. B, get rid of Thibs. C, get rid of both. Or D, get rid of Benji. Easy choice for me. I'm getting rid of Randle.
Jeremy,
I'll take C.
get rid of both.
Andrew?
I will.
By a
So
vowel?
it's get rid of well, then A is a vowel. So it's get rid of Randall, get rid of Thibs, get rid of both. I'll go with A. I've never been like all the way out on Thibs. It's the he walks on water that I've always pushed back on.
Who would ever say such a thing?
Yeah, I wonder. No, like when I did the Friday night when they beat the Heat, they came back against the Heat, and some of us were off else we're doing other things, John. I said to the chat, like, imagine like 30 to 35 wins just like this next year, where the young kids are playing and he's reading the lineups like it was last year, where it's not a set rotation in the fourth quarter. It's all right, who's hot? All right, I'm playing Quickly right now. I'm playing like last year we did get like benched RJ fourth quarters because he was cold. And so, all right, Quickly's playing down the stretch. All right, Derrick Rose is playing down the stretch. And imagine if you took his toys away that he loves to, overplay, but we get 30 to 35 wins like that. I don't think there's a championship ceiling as well as the current roster is constructed with Thibs, but I do believe there's one of the most fun seasons I've ever had as a Knicks fan was with Tom Thibodeau as head coach. I believe that could still happen.
And if you forced his hand and you made him play the kids through your roster construction, I think there's a chance you get not as good, but a season like Memphis is having this year. With the young kids are doing the heavy lifting. They're obviously great without Ja because they have a plan and they know what they're doing. They also have really good role players on that team. Robert Cross with one more unbelievable.
Wait, really?
Yeah. GMAC, where do you think #53 wins went wrong? I know you're not, you're saving your eulogy, but Jeremy, if you could pinpoint one thing where
he asked me,
he did.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, Andrew. Yes.
I'll turn it over to you guys. And yes,
no, Andrew, answer the question.
There's a eulogy to say next week. 53 wins went wrong when all of us in our braggadocious New York ways thought that last season was more sustainable than it actually was. And while we were along for the ride in the hype of going into this season in private, and I mean, Jeremy, your preseason prediction was 44, 45 wins.
No, it was like 43.
So it was closer to,
but it was,
so like,
sure, I hit the
you're
over,
like 6 wins off on the Pythagorean. So it's not even that far off. And they literally are missing their two best players from last year, whatever Randle was last year, and they haven't had Derrick Rose. I think it went wrong, the 53 wins in our expectations. And it's a lesson for those of you that are Knicks fans and also Yankee fans that you don't always get the best of things. Sometimes you can also be a Mets fan and the worst possible outcome could also happen. Trust me. I've learned that over the past week.
I was gonna say, I was like, why am I catching strays on this when?
No.
Yeah, no, I know.
You understand the Yankee expectation of like,
higher.
We made the playoffs again. How dare us? It's like, I would love to just make the playoffs every year and see what happens. I would love to have a meaningful 162 games,
Maybe not.
All right, should we give out some game balls?
I know. That's why I said it.
And it's already maybe next year.
I'm sorry.
No, you're going to be good. Are we doing game balls?
Yeah, let's transition to some segments. Game balls.
Okay. So someone we want to highlight or give credit to for their performance this week. A tough one.
Candidates, John.
Obi Toppin, Immanuel Quickly, Evan Fournier, the great Alec Burks, or Jeremy Cohen for turning 27, not 28.
It's a huge accomplishment.
I'll go Obi. He had his career high yesterday and he tied it again today. I think a lot of people, me included, have been skeptical of like what he could do with more time and whether he'd be able to be more than just someone that benefited in transition, and whether how much of what he did earlier in the year and his effectiveness was just tied to Derrick Rose. Like, dude's a good basketball player and he could do different things. And I know he's still figuring it out, but I think this weekend was a reminder of the reason why the Knicks drafted Obi Toppin 8th. And I personally forget that sometimes. And I already kind of like put Obi into this box of like, well, obviously we are not getting the value that of like the pick he was made at compared to like maybe some other players that we could have had at that spot. And maybe I'm being way too quick with that assessment. I am being too quick with that assessment. I am being too quick with that assessment because we've never really gotten a chance to see him, what he looks like with the training wheels off and really getting out there. And like, I remember I wrote a column last year during his rookie year in which I compared not the player, because obviously they're nothing alike, but the situation to CJ McCollum. another guy who was drafted from a lesser school. He was an older player when the Blazers drafted him, did not get a lot of time for 2 years. He was looked at as a bust through the first 2 years of his career. And then his third year, he came in and he averaged about 20 points a game and he won most improved player because he actually just got time. Like, I don't know that Obi Toppin can't do that. Maybe he can. Who knows?
Question for you, John. Is that another balloon next to you?
I've been wondering it for 10 minutes. I forgot to ask. Yeah.
How
Is
it
it the same balloon or a different balloon?
Different balloon.
My
My daughter was sick
Oh no!
last week.
You're right.
No, this was like a week and a half ago now, but or maybe 2 weeks ago. I don't remember what it is. And my mom sent a get well soon balloon thing, and this is the last balloon standing. And my daughter both of my daughters like playing with balloons, so here it is.
Can you send that to Jacob DeGrom?
If I had his address, I would.
There you go.
Yeah. Anyway.
I thought you were going to pick Quickly again, so I was going to go with Quickly, and I was going to go with Obi, and I will go with Quickly. But yeah, I think the thing to keep in mind with Obi, as you're saying, is that sometimes it takes players a little longer to pop, and clearly, as we are seeing in front of us, that the way that the Knicks have overhauled their drafting abilities is everything. Like the lack of talent that they have been able to draft and develop and keep has been astounding. And the fact that we have seen 5 picks so far, 6 really, right? 5, no 6, it would be 6, 6 picks, 1 overseas, and what they are able to do in their respective leagues has been very encouraging.
Yep.
So with the second draft pick, Immanuel Quickly, I will go with him. Incredible that he got a triple-double. I know that may not seem like much, and it's just 3, numbers that happen to be in double digits, but just how he's able to command the offense, the effort he shows on defense, being just a winning player. I'm very glad that Worldwide Wes was as adamant about this as possible, ripping off his shirt and showing anyone as alpha as he can be that they have to draft Immanuel Quickly would be perfect. So shout out Worldwide Wes. Everywhere he goes, he does not leave a worldwide mess, though, in this case, because Quickly has been pretty great.
I see you throwing shade at the triple-double, by the way.
Don't do that.
Jeremy's preparing for all the Russ triple-doubles next year.
Yes, he is mentally.
Yeah.
It takes a lot. By the way, good call. Jewin on Jermaine O'Neal was in a similar spot to Obi. Yes, except he was in Portland, I believe, for 4 years before he got traded to Indiana. Saw some playing time, I think, in that last year in Portland, but obviously went to Indiana and became an MVP candidate. Okay. Detention / the Julius Randle Weekly Commemoration of Events Award. But I thought of that off the top of my head. Candidates: Julius Randle, Tom Thibodeau, as they just perpetually, the two of them are candidates. Also, Leon Rose. Well, how'd Leon Rose sneak in there?
He's been on I haven't changed the list in months. It's been those 3. You either been the player, the coach, or the front office.
The basketball gods.
Baseball gods.
Baseball
the
gods.
baseball
the baseball gods. Excuse me. Sorry.
Yes.
Who do I want to give this to? I mean, I'm always comfortable giving it to Randle.
Played 1 game or 2 games this week. Oh, I did play 2 games this week. That's right.
No, I'm going to give it to Randle. Fuck this.
Okay. On brand. And then go ahead, Jeremy.
It sucked watching him play.
I'm going to go with the baseball gods.
Thank you. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I thought you were going Thibs. Thank you. They've
I'm
been
just
very
kidding.
mean
I
to
am.
me right now. Oh, you are going with Thibs? You are going with Thibs?
But I'm blaming the baseball gods for giving me Hal Steinbrenner as an owner. No.
Wow.
Wow.
I just wish, again, he's spending money. He's just not spending the right money. But then again, the Yankees could win the World Series and shut everyone up. But I don't think they necessarily will. And I just wish Brian Cashman would stop talking about the past and instead focus on the present and the future, because we just don't need to bring up what is 4 years ago. It's
especially
unnecessary.
when there's a letter about to be unsealed that might be pretty scathing to the Yankees and give them no grounds to talk about the Astros anymore.
And I want to say this as a Yankee fan. Clearly, if there was something that they are going completely at length to prevent from seeing from the public, it's not good. So like, that's the thing where it's like, I remember with the whole cheating scandal, the idea that all these other teams are doing it. And I wish that the MLB had come down much harder on the Astros than they did. I mean, the fact that Rob Manfred called it a piece of metal is pretty insulting and is like the perfect microcosm for how he is treating a league that is dying because he doesn't know how to appeal to other fans. But I digress in terms of with the baseball guys. I certainly feel for Mets fans with everything going on with DeGrom and now potentially Scherzer. It's just, yeah, I like to have your hopes up. It's the Family Guy video every year where Stewie is a Mets fan, and then it's
and
opening
the season
day,
is
first
over.
pitch, and right. That's not fun. I'd like for both baseball teams in New York to be competitive.
Yay, baseball. Also, a couple of super
John.
chats as we transition to our weekly tankathon simulation of the week. Andrew, if you want to pull that up.
I got it ready.
Robert Cross, my star of the week is David Fudernick. Been talking mad shit about Wordle to me on Twitter. Go Fuddy. Love you, Fuddy. And
he's got
also
a birthday coming up this week too. He's on.
Does he?
He's Tuesday.
Okay. Happy early birthday, David Fudernick. I did not know it was your birthday. That's awesome. And then just real quick, Kareem Asura asked, we're talking about forcing Thibs' hand, but what makes you think he wouldn't go to war with the front office if that happened? The relationship could sour real quick. My response to that would be that the relationship already has soured and that they could force Thibs' hand by saying you don't have a job anymore if you don't do the thing that we want you to do. Yeah, that's basically it.
Do you guys see the tankathon up?
I do see it.
Okay. Is it one screen or two screens that you see?
One screen.
Just one screen. All right, it works.
All
right, good. Just making sure. Okay. All right. Welcome everybody to our tankathon simulation. The Knicks currently, with the win today, jump up to 12th best odds in the lottery. We're going to do this exactly 2 more times, I think, this week and then next week. And then we'll see if we keep the bit going throughout the offseason. John, would you like to go first?
Yes.
Okay. So we sim the lottery and Indiana. Go ahead, John.
Indiana. I have a funny feeling Indiana's gonna get a really good pick. Indiana 1, Portland 2, Orlando 3, Houston 4. So Detroit falls and Oklahoma City falls, and we land at 12th.
Well, 12 again. Okay. Who does that hurt the most? Detroit and all the winning they've done, they dropped down to 5, but you almost seeing something out of Kate over the last month, and especially like what Bagley's looked like.
They're in great shape.
Yeah, they're in good shape. Yeah, they might have. I mean, we didn't really talk about this last week with the Pistons game. Is there a world where they like unlocked something with Bagley? He looks refreshed and rejuvenated.
Offense was never the problem with him. It was always what position can he defend, and I still think that that's an issue because if you're a high level team, you can't really play him at the 5, and like if you're playing him at the 4, that creates other issues offensively too.
Before you hit sim, Andrew, I just want to take a moment. The hilarity of the fact that the team right below the Knicks is the Nets.
Yeah, there's a world where they fall out because they're currently I simmed it earlier today and they won, and the Rockets won the lottery as a result from the Harden trade that they don't even have.
It.
Yeah, you hate to see it. Okay, Jeremy, your sim is.
I always get the most boring sims.
Yeah.
All right. You got the Magic staying exactly where they are. The Pistons moving up 1. The Kings moving up 4. The Rockets dropping to the 4th pick. Oklahoma City dropping 1. Indiana dropping 1. And Portland dropping 1. It's kind of a meh.
Mr. Claudio?
Yeah. Last but not least, we haven't had the Knicks win the lottery or be in the top 4 in any of our tankathon sims, which is
they have a 6%.
Probably tell you about
7% chance.
Probably tell you something. All right, sim lottery. Portland gets the number 1 pick. It's a protected pick from 1 to 14. Detroit moves up 1 to 2, and Orlando drops back 2, and then OKC. I think the Knicks are going to be somewhere between 10 and 12, guys. I think that's where I'm leaning toward at this point.
Or the team in 11th jumps up and becomes
that's the worst.
Whatever
part.
the team is,
the team right below the Knicks gets into the top 4.
Yeah. I mean, we should say just very briefly as of right now, and they're the Kings are playing at the moment and getting their ass kicked because that's all the Kings do anymore. Shout out to the Kings. The Knicks right now are So yeah, so they're not going to be worse position than 12th. That's pretty much settled. They're tied with the Pelicans as far as record or games like back, but I guess based on winning percentage, they have a slightly better record than the Pelicans. But like the Pelicans could we're going to get to predictions soon. The Pelicans could pass them. The Wizards could still pass them. They play the Wizards this week. Talk about a big tanking game. My goodness. And then San Antonio, who's still fighting for a playoff spot. How about this? There is actually, I think, is there any possibility the Lakers could finish with a better record than the Knicks now?
Oh, good point.
Lakers are 31-47. That means they have 4 games left, right?
Yeah.
So if they win all 4, they tie the Knicks at 35
best they could
wins.
do is tie the Knicks.
Wow.
Yeah, Lakers lost 6 in a row. They're tanking and they don't have their pick.
7, 8.
Yeah.
So realistically, the Knicks could still get the 9th spot in the lottery. 10, 11 is more likely. Yeah. Okay. We'll see where they land next week.
Would probably require them to lose out, what does their final slate look like?
All right, here we go. The comeback is almost complete, baby. Giddy the fuck up. Yes, Jeremy was sitting on his high horse with his whiskey and his hot dog. And he had it all.
Whiskey and my hot dog?
Whiskey and a hot dog.
What era am I doing this? Is this like the 1880s?
Yes.
Did they have hot dogs back then?
I think they did.
I don't know if they're called hot dogs. He was a hot dog on his high horse is what he was. And
you saved it, John.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He thought the season was over because he had an 11-6 lead in predictions. Well, after 5 straight wins, guess who is Zach? It is me. With the pick to determine who's going to win it, because if I nail it, there's nothing Jeremy could do. So last 3 games, Nets. This is our playback game. This takes place on Wednesday. It's an ESPN game. Friday night. Is that really an NBA TV game?
Yes.
For now.
It's like Knicks against Porzingis again.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's against the Wizards. That's at Washington. So the Nets game is at home. Wizards game is at Washington. Then we finish up at home against Toronto on Sunday at a time to be determined.
It's been determined. It's 7 p.m.
Okay, there you go.
I know, right?
So we should say we will be doing this one more time next Sunday after the game, another live thing, because it's the end of the season and that's the right thing to do. Okay. I think there are 3 realistic choices here. There's 2 realistic choices here, and one other choice that, like, if you wanted to get kinky, you could make it.
Aren't there only 4 choices?
Yeah, and I think 2
are.
Oh,
you're saying
2
3
are the realistic.
Okay, gotcha.
And then there's one that's like the 2 realistic are 0-3 and 1-2. And then like could you 2-1 is like, listen, they kind of like, wouldn't it be just like the Knicks, right? To beat the fucking Nets and when the Nets need a win.
So what do you see Toronto doing the rest of the year? Are they playing out the stretch to try and get home court? So if they get the 4 seed, they actually have like a weird home court advantage because of Canada's vaccine law.
So
it's the same here. It's just you're able to travel within the time. You know what I mean? Like,
wait, what do you mean?
So because people in the past, I've seen them being like, well, Canada has this. It's the same thing with the U.S., but because of the fact that there are 29 teams in the U.S. and 1 in Canada, like it's the same rule applies. It's just weirder because of the fact there's only 1 team and you have to cross the border. Like it's the same thing from a Canada perspective going into the U.S. Does that make sense?
Right, but it's the not the same going to Canada, right? So if you're unvaccinated and you're on the Celtics, you then would not be able to play the road games in Toronto.
Right, but even still, based on Canada's law, that's why all of them are vaccinated. It's not just because of the rules in Canada.
I'm literally saying
they do.
They have
a
home court advantage.
Yes,
because if they play a series against the team, like if they play the Nets, like that's a thing,
So let's say that. So right now, Toronto is tied for the 5th spot with the Bulls. The Bulls, I'm seeing are 5th. Toronto's 6th. I'm assuming that's based on the tiebreaker. I honestly have not looked up the Bulls Toronto tiebreaker situation. Apologies for that. Is there a scenario where Toronto could be trying to lose its last game? I would say yes, depending on where Milwaukee is at. Milwaukee is currently 2.5 games back of the number 1 seed. I would imagine that Milwaukee is trying to win from here on out. But then again, they sat a bunch of guys the other night. So, like, this is also complicated. At this point, I have no reason to believe that Toronto is not going to try to win the last game of the season. Let's just say that.
Agreed.
So, if Toronto is trying to win their last game of the season, the Knicks are not going to win the last game of the season, in my humble estimation. So that means, again, I am deciding between 2-1, 1-2, or 0-3. The thing I just said a minute ago about wouldn't it be just like the Knicks to beat the Nets, right? But then wouldn't it be just like the Knicks to then lose to the Wizards? Although perhaps the Knicksiest thing of all would be to screw up their draft position by beating the Wizards. So many machinations.
Pick a lane.
No, this is important.
1-2.
1-2. Jeremy, where are you going?
It's the only other option. It's 2-1. I mean, if I go 0-3,
wow! I wanted to put that choice in your hands, and now
look, I knew that you were always going to go with 1-2. It was
okay.
Going into this week, I knew like John's going to go 1-2. I'm not going to go 0-3 because if they win 1, I'm out. So I'd rather.
What's more likely, them going 0-3 or them going 2-1?
Didn't you just hear John? Wouldn't it be the most Knicks thing to do for them to win games?
I think watching them play the Cavs, like a team that actually is trying,
cares about winning.
Yeah, that leans me more toward they have no chance against the Nets, no chance against the Raptors, and then like going to Washington, who has played better, especially at home.
Washington's been winning games of late.
Yeah, like
crazily enough.
I hear it again. If John hadn't taken 1-2, I would have taken 1-2.
Okay.
But I can't. I hear what you're saying. I hear it.
Okay.
But
I thought about 2-1.
3 it's just tough for me.
I thought about
final predictions are in.
Here's the thing. I thought about 2-1, and then ultimately the reason I didn't is because then Jeremy gets to pick 1-2 and gets both 1-2 and 0-3 as possibilities, and that would be insane of me to do that. So now Jeremy, yes, technically there was 2 possibilities that Jeremy could win with 3-0 and 2-1, but I'll take my chances. We got a couple final super chats before us producers corner. One from Robert Cross, of course, because what would a post game be without 7 consecutive super chats from Robert Cross? Robert Cross, we appreciate every one of these.
Thank you, sir.
Seriously, thank you. First time, long time, John. Would you sign Money Mitch for 4 years? Last year as a club option. $57.5 million. So doing some quick math in my head, that would mean he's getting paid approximately $14 million a year, 14 and change, 14 and like 14.3, something like that. With the last year being a club option, 14 a year.
Mind you, it's probably starting lower and then increasing by 8%.
Yeah.
So it's the first year's probably going to be.
So you're going like 12.5 to 13 something to 14
that,
something. Yeah. God, Jesus. Yeah. Jeremy?
I'd do it, but I would also want
Vomit.
some of that money to be unguaranteed or non-guaranteed, excuse me, or unlikely bonuses, excuse me.
Oh, that would be much better. Yeah, give me $1 million bonus for all defense. Throw the Randle bonus in there, 65 plus playoffs. That's great. Kevin Danishevsky with also, oh my God, Mo Bamba looked terrible today. #discount. I don't know if I want to be in the Mo Bamba business anymore.
He's not the center of the Knicks like. That archetype is not.
He's not
what he does. So I don't see him being a Knick.
All right. Andrew Claudio.
Jonathan Macri. Jeremy Cohen. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in for today's extended postgame. We have a quick producer's corner in honor of the Coincidence's birthday, which is tomorrow. First, we did this last year, and John answered that the celebrity in which Jeremy shares birthdays with, the most prestigious, the one that outside of Jeremy probably has the biggest name value, is Robert Downey Jr. So there's Robert Downey Jr. and then it would have been Heath Ledger's 43rd birthday. Also remember from last year. It's also Jamie Lynn Spears' birthday tomorrow. Something that
means a lot to me.
Brought some people back to a time. Anyway, in the chat, I'm gonna read off some names. You guys tell us if you're listening at home, contribute in the comments, or if you're watching later, contribute in the comments. Whose birthday is it also? Like the most, like when you think about Jeremy's having tomorrow being his birthday, like it's also this person's birthday. It's like the most famous person. So it's Robert Downey Jr., Heath Ledger, David Blaine, Jamie Lynn Spears, Hugo Weaving, I almost said Robert Cross, David Cross, James Roday, and Eric Andre. So hit us up in the chat. I'm now going to switch it up to famous 27-year-olds. So John and Jeremy, you tell me who is the most famous 27-year-old based off of the list I'm about to read.
Okay.
Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, Brianna Stewart, Shohei Ohtani, Carlos Correa, RM, which he's one of the members of BTS, right, Jeremy?
I don't know.
Sure.
Actually.
Don't think he's gonna win. Megan Thee Stallion, Takeoff of Migos, Malika Andrews of ESPN, New York Mets first baseman Pete Alonso, Jeremy's long lost twin Clint Frazier, and New York Knicks fan favorite Julius Randle. Guys, who is the most famous 27-year-old?
I mean, it's Giannis, but this RM from what fuck?
If
From
RM
what
is a
fuck?
member of BTS, then it is 100% RM.
The fuck
It's
is
RM.
BTS?
It's a K-pop group, a Korean pop group that I'm telling you, your
Is that
students
those?
know who that is. What is that? Those what?
I see pictures of like a band on a lot of like
Probably.
background of phones of like students in
Most
like, high
likely,
school.
yes. In the same way that like One Direction came overseas and took over American music, BTS did something similar in a K-pop type of way. My mom loves their music and loves the group. So if you're going just by fame, it's absolutely RM. I think in our little circle, it's either Giannis or Jokic.
He doesn't even have a real name. It's just 2 letters.
Yeah.
Well, it's a stage name.
Yeah.
What's his real name?
Robert Moss. I don't know.
Robert Moses. There was a
Robert
famous person.
Moses. There you go.
Not a great person,
Oh.
unfortunately.
You want to
Pretty shitty guy.
Not
but-
gonna lie, until I didn't know that I forgot that Robert Moses exists because I'm no longer on Long Island. Completely forgot that guy exists. Or
Robert
existed.
Moses.
Fuck that guy.
So
Gosh.
we're going.
A lot of people.
So we're going with Giannis. I think.
Sure. Yes.
Giannis or RM. Okay.
I mean, but again, Megan Thee Stallion.
I think you guys are sleeping on
That's-
Ohtani.
Well, see, that's the thing. Ohtani is huge, but because going back to our conversation on baseball, the MLB doesn't know how to market its
Thank
sport.
you.
It's a nightmare.
Sorry. Go ahead, Jeremy. It's a nightmare. Oh yes, absolutely. Baseball has no idea how to
Shohei
market them.
Ohtani should be bigger.
Um,
than
He's like the modern day Babe Ruth, right?
Ryan Huang, rap monster is what RM stands for.
I appreciated Robert Cross's comment, which BLT question mark in reference to the K-pop band. I could go for a BLT right now, actually. On that note, all right, this was fun. Andrew, anything else?
Also according to Ryan Huang, also he is by far the most famous out of them all. Yeah, this is like if I can Americanize this or make it more relatable to you, he's like would this be McCartney or no? Because McCartney and Lennon kind of share the stage there. Would it be more like Timberlake, Jeremy, where it's like clearly there's I got it. He's Beyonce. Because I can't
in Destiny's
exactly.
Child.
He's Destiny's Child. Like the stature of Beyonce, like he's clearly the most famous out of this one group. Or maybe Harry Styles would be the better comp. But yeah,
I'm offended on behalf of the Beyonce fans out there.
if the Bayhive would like to spam our chat, go right
Is it
ahead.
Bayhive or Beehive?
It's the Bayhive, but they
Oh, it
leave
is.
bees. But it's like their symbol is to leave bees in comment sections, and it's just we've swarmed. which I did not say anything detrimental to Beyonce. I'm just using a comp to try and make this more relatable.
I
But
miss
you also
Destiny's
weren't
Child.
complimentary, so
Wait, what?
you also weren't complimentary.
I love Beyonce. I think she is a talented.
Backpedaling.
I
see
think
it.
she's a talented singer.
You're scared.
Beyonce
Acting.
sung
the Bay
sung
Hive.
one of my wedding songs.
Oh, really?
That's
Yes.
Wow, you had Beyonce at your wedding?
We danced. One of the songs that we danced to was the hip hop remix version of Love on Top.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I was gonna say I was wondering why you had Bootylicious at your wedding, John.
Did not have Bootylicious. Anyway, okay, this was fun. Jeremy, happy birthday, happy early birthday, or as we're recording right now, it's about 2 hours beforehand. So I hope you have a great day, and do something fun, have some good food, whatever.
Thank you. I will. I made brisket. It's a nice recipe. New one. I'm gonna make it into a sandwich.
There you go.
Getting
Okay.
dinner later. So and work.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And most importantly, as we sign off, this has been a long, mostly miserable season. If you are listening to this, it means A, you have listened to almost 2 hours worth of a podcast about said miserable team, which has played miserable season. You are a trooper. Thank you from all of us here at KFS. We're not done yet. We still got a week's worth left of games to go. And obviously, we're going to have a ton of off-season content. But just from all of us to you, thanks for sticking with us the whole year, even though this team hasn't been much fun. And yeah, we'll have more fun and games coming up very soon.
Robert Cross in the super chat before we go. GMAC,
Oh.
can you do Bootylicious with Thibs' voice? How would that even go?
My body!
No, I can't. Goodbye, everybody.
That's the answer. I can't.
My body's too bootylicious for you, babe.